In April 2004, a 911 call was placed from a secluded apartment in Laurel, Maryland. The caller, Laura Rogers, reported that her husband, Walter, was dead. The first officers on the scene thought it was a suicide, but this was no suicide. And the reason behind the murder would reveal a story of abuse, manipulation, and a piece of evidence so horrifying that it would lead a judge to call the victim in his own courtroom, I quote, a horrible human being. This is the story of Laura Rogers. Laura's life with Walter began with what seemed like a fairy tale. They met at a concert in 1992. He was charming, attractive, and seemed to accept her 2 children from a previous marriage. He proposed in a Pizza Hut, and for the first few years, life was wonderful. But this idyllic start is a common thread in stories of coercive control, manipulative, and toxic relationships. The charm often serves as a mask, which slowly slips away once isolation and dependency are established in the relationship. About 3 years into the marriage, a dark pattern emerged. Walter became controlling and emotionally abusive. He used his work as a contractor to move the family frequently, dozens of times over a decade, effectively isolating Laura and the children from any potential support network. She was often forbidden from working or having friends. She later described living in a state of terror and fear, convinced that if she tried to leave, he would find her. This pervasive sense of entrapment is a key component of what experts call battered spouse syndrome. The abuse, tragically, wasn't confined to Laura. In 2000, her younger daughter complained that Walter had touched her inappropriately. Police in Mississippi investigated, but the case was sadly dismissed. Walter was persuasive and the allegation faded, creating a dangerous precedent. Then in May 2003, the daughter, now 16 years old, told school officials in Anne Arundel County that her stepfather was sexually abusing her. Child services and police were called, but once again, Walter Rogers was devastatingly convincing. He wept during interviews, denied the claims, and portrayed himself as the victim, saying his world was, I quote, caving in. In a shocking reversal, the system turned on the victim. Laura's daughter was prosecuted and convicted in juvenile court for filing a false police report, a conviction that would haunt the family and further cement Walter's power. The police were on his side. By April 2004, the 16-year-old girl was 7 months pregnant. Laura, still under Walter's psychological thumb, believed the father was a boy from her daughter's school. The tension in the house was palpable. On April 23rd, in a cruel irony, Walter instructed Laura to buy a shotgun for protection, which she did from a local Walmart. He was in effect providing the instrument of his own demise. But that same night, the entire facade shattered. Around 9 p.m., Laura's daughter approached her with a shocking revelation. She said her claims of abuse were true and there was irrefutable proof. A videotape was hidden behind Walter's Playboy magazines. While Walter was outside, Laura retrieved the tape. In their bedroom, she slipped it into a video camera and watched the images play out on the tiny screen. What she saw was every parent's worst nightmare. Graphic, undeniable evidence that Walter was not only sexually assaulting her daughter, but was the father of the baby she was carrying. The conviction, the lies, the manipulation, it all collapsed in that moment. Laura later said she went numb. I quote, "I kind of went into a little shell," she recalled. This dissociative state is a common trauma response, but one thought was crystal clear. When I saw that videotape, he was never going to harm my daughter again. She did not confront him. When Walter came inside, she quietly helped pack for a trip they were planning, a testament to the years of learned compliance. But a profound and traumatic rupture had occurred. In the early hours of April 24th, before the sun was up, something in Laura Rogers snapped. She reached under the bed for the new shotgun. She carried it to the living room, loaded it, and then walked back into the bedroom where Walter slept. She remembers seeing him asleep on his right side. She remembers the sound of the gun going off. What happened next is a blur. She claims not to remember aiming or pulling the trigger. She recalls running, thinking, "What the hell have I done?" Laura called the police and initially let them believe it was a suicide, but detectives were suspicious from the start. The case took another heartbreaking twist when Laura's 16-year-old daughter, in a desperate attempt to protect the only parent she had left, confessed to the crime. However, she didn't even know how to load the shotgun. When police told Laura about her daughter's false confession, Laura broke down and admitted the truth. She was charged with first-degree murder, facing life in prison. But this was a case prosecutors never wanted to take to a jury. How could they, with the videotape as evidence? In a plea deal, Laura Rogers pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter. The pivotal moment came in the judge's chamber. Circuit Court Judge Paul A. Hackner watched the horrifying videotape. He also heard psychological evidence that Laura suffered from battered spouse syndrome, which explained her state of mind and why she saw no way out. In a remarkable courtroom statement, Judge Hackner sentenced Laura to the maximum of 10 years, but then suspended the sentence to the 198 days she had already served. He stated that Walter Rogers was a horrible human being, and that Laura had, in his words, rid the world of a horrible human being. The state did not oppose her release, acknowledging the unique and mitigating circumstances. Laura Rogers was released from jail 6 months after the killing. The conviction against her daughter for filing a false police report was vacated. DNA tests later confirmed that Walter was indeed the father of her baby, who was put up for adoption. Reflecting on her actions, Laura expressed a lifetime of remorse for taking a life, but also a grim resolution. She said, "I couldn't change the past, but damn, I could change the future." Her story remains a deeply troubling and complex example of how the justice system sometimes has to navigate the blurred lines between crime and survival. Do you believe Laura was justified in her actions? I certainly do. She had a daughter that had to be protected. Would you be able to stand still if your underage daughter was carrying the baby of your partner? If you or someone you know needs help, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline or RAINN, Rape, Abuse and Incest National Network. That is for America, but I'm sure there's also services in the UK if you search it up.